Welcome to Dear Art Producer, a podcast connecting the photography and video community with art producers. Drawing on her agency experience some years ago, photography agent Heather Elder penned an open letter to art producers discussing the finer points of working with one another. This podcast takes that idea and will introduce you to different art producers, share the stories of their diverse career paths, explore what it means to stay relevant, and examine industry topics such as marketing, estimating, directing, websites, and more.
Hi, welcome to Dear Art Producer. I am your host, Heather Elder, and today we welcome visual consultant, art production specialist, and senior integrated producer, Jean Wolff. Jean is a valuable part of our community, having seen so many of the changes that have happened over the years firsthand. She manages projects for clients that need everything from motion to print, and she's here with us today to talk about what exactly she's seeing in our industry now.
Thank you, Heather.
Yeah, welcome. How are you today?
I'm pretty well, thank you.
Besides cold?
Cold, but, a little early for the cold snap, but doing really well.
Well, being from San Francisco and only bringing a thin coat with me and getting off the train and seeing that there was a polar vortex coming, I was like, oh my God, no.
I think it's only supposed to be temporary. I think it's supposed to swing back, but I think you probably leave. You'll take it with you.
I'll take it with me. Exactly. So, when we were kind of talking about your title, there's so many different parts of that. I thought maybe we can talk a little bit about like where you got started in the industry, what some of the evolutions you've seen, and then kind of all of that can kind of lead us to like what you are doing today.
Terrific.
So maybe you can just kind of introduce yourself a little bit.
Well, I've, as you said, been in the business for the industry many years. We used to call it a business.
That's funny.
But I started early on in my career at Ogilvy and Mather in New York. Mm-hmm. I've lost track of how many agency I've been. Back in the day, we would jump from agency to agency because that's how you get the experience. It would take years to become a senior art buyer or producer or head of department. I started my career with really creative agencies, Ogilvy and Mather, McCaffrey and McCall. I worked on Tiffany. I worked on Bacardi. I worked with Ritz. I'm probably going to say names that a lot of people may not even remember or know about. I was fortunate enough to work with Robert Mapplethorpe a year before he died.
Wow.
I worked with Richard Avedon, Annie Liebowitz. I mean, yeah, the name dropping can go on, but I worked with artists. Mm-hmm. I worked with real, heroes of mine, artists, and had the privilege of working with them, working in a commercial capacity with them, but also getting to know them and having amazing conversations with them about how they approach their craft, their work, looking through a camera. And I would sit on set and just watch every one of them work. And I remember early on, I was at Wells working on IBM and working with Kurt Marcus. Yes, I believe it's Kurt Marcus, who is an amazing photographer who started with Bruce Weber, was one of Weber's assistants. And he turned at me at one point after we had a conversation. He said, "So how am I doing?" And I was stunned. I was young and stunned. And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Well, you're the one that knows how everybody thinks." But it really gave me an insight into the creative process, how you put things together. I have a visual background. I'm a fine artist by schooling. I have a master's in painting. I'm still a painter. So I can, I know how to make things. I know how to see the world. And I also understand composition, depth of field, all the things we used to talk about that in the digital age, I think have fallen a little bit to the wayside. Lighting, especially, but we can probably talk about that later because that's probably more technical versus what we're here to talk about today, I suspect. But I worked with amazing image makers, and I feel very fortunate to have had that experience because of they still exist, but not in the way that they had in the past. And it's not only because, people just, moving on and, passing on, and it's just the media isn't there in the same way, and how we consume images is very different. So our visual acuity is different. Commercial industries are different. Advertising is different. But, that's where I came from. I came from a real creative, and I worked with amazing creatives. I mean, I worked at Ammirati and Puris and worked with Ralph Ammirati, and that was a, very different way of working than a lot of different agencies. But I worked very collaboratively with creatives, with photographers, and we had an ethos. There was a definite ethos at the time and a way of looking at work. And over the years that has evolved, that's changed. And I don't want to say it doesn't exist. It does. It probably does, but it comes from the top down in a lot of organizations. And with the biggest change in our industry over the years, I will say, is the consolidation of companies and holding companies. And I think that's where it shifted. You'll see smaller agencies wanting to stay independent, but you see the bigger agencies going from creative powerhouses and into being run by financial institutions. Mm-hmm. So that's a big shift in how the business has evolved and towards a certain kind of attitude towards media. And I think that's a really big word, which things are being driven by media. And I never really you used to have media buyers, but with all the changes in the business, media planners, strategists, it's changed a lot where it's driven by media, and the agencies are being driven by media. And a lot of it is programmatic. A lot of it is, technology has just upended that industry to the point of very numbers driven and very quantitative and data driven. And I have some experience with that, but I haven't gotten a huge grasp on it. But analytics are everything now. And
yeah, you've done such a good job of kind of showing the arc of what your job was in the beginning, mm-hmm. in terms of the partners you made, the exposure and the access you had to the artists, mm-hmm. that you had, and the creative process. And all of those experiences have absolutely informed who you are today and the values that you can bring, and insights that you can bring to a company who's now in this new space. And you're right, like there are, enter the holding companies. Mm-hmm. After the holding companies enter the consulting agencies, make the, and on top of that, add to the fact that the brands are bringing more of their work in-house. The agency of record idea is not as prevalent as it used to be. There's so much project-based work. The Googles and the Facebooks of the world are taking on a lot of that those digital projects. And on top of that, this whole freelance gig economy has, boomed because of that. And I don't want to say it feels unstable, but we're shifting.
Yes, I agree. I say what has happened, I would even say in the last 10 years, but even shorter, maybe in the last 6 years, I happen to be kind of at the forefront of the digital transformation in the early teens, let's say, being at a digital agency. And I would think, oh, it's changing every 6 months, and then it would change. And then things started changing every 2 months. And I looked at it as social media and what's happened with technology and Google is what I call the third industrial revolution. Mm-hmm. First you had the cotton gin, then you had the telephone and the robber barons and automobiles that changed. That was a huge transformation. And now technology, what has happened is technology is is basically, again, erasing industries. Publishing has been affected massively. You don't see print as much, a printed page. People don't consume paper. I mean, I'm probably one of the few people that reads the New York Times in paper on the train. It's warning. It's a target. Makes you a target for tourists to say, no, must know where you're going. In our industry, advertising, out of home, advertising, the newspapers, everything has migrated to social, and it's also very here today, gone tomorrow. It's very, there's a word I'm looking for, elusive, evaporates. It's,
well, there's, we went from that hero image. You would send me a layout, and that was that hero image, and you had to have this particular photographer do it because who else could do it? There's no one else that can do it. To the library of images,
exactly,
right? Where you still want to, I'm not dismissing the hero image. You're still looking for those heroic moments, but it's scenarios. It's a shot list. It's not layouts.
Exactly. And it's also driven by who are your targets now, which is millennials want these authentic experience. And also we've had a crisis that millennials don't spend. They don't want to drive. They don't want to buy cars. They're glued to their screens. They want authentic experiences. They want immediate experiences. That's why you see pop-ups everywhere. HBO does all these experiential projects around their offerings.
Airbnb's experiences and travel. Yeah.
National Geographic with I saw a pop-up for Picasso Genius where they had they set up like the artist studio and had people walking you through, and you could be in front of Guernica and take your selfie. Everything's about this immersive experience and influencers. And that I also was the forefront on the influencer because I was starting working directly with media partners in my last company where I would need to help them find artist influencers, not necessarily about photography per se, but photographers as influencers and their reach. And they are looking to buy eyeballs. And so that shifted, and that distinction that I can make was it was fine that they could find influencers, but some of these creatives didn't know how to create the content for influencer executions. And it was being able to talk to, being the bridge to be able to talk to them about crafting something, how to articulate it, how to produce it for the final Facebook page, wherever it was landing, YouTube, whatever, and then making sure that, the legal and the hashtags. So there was, brokering, I want to say, of finding influencer artists, talking to them as artists, but also working with media to meld that together. And because the reason I bring that up is because years ago, I was on an ASMP panel, and Stuart Elliott was on it, and that was the reason I actually accepted to be on the panel. And there was a room of photographers, and the question was, this probably was 2014, 15, somewhere around there. And this is how quickly it's changed, because it was like, what's an influencer? What's an influencer? And everybody was asking me, these photographers. And the reality of it was the influencers are, in our world are not necessarily the best photographers, but they have the followings. So it was trying to explain what that was at that turning point when the influencer culture and brands tapping into it was starting to rise. And it was a real eye-opener because there were all these photographers just like, what's an influencer? And you realize that it was changing that fast that people couldn't keep up with it. And I see it even in, the 2 years that I've now been back freelancing or consulting. that it's still changing. It's, our titles change constantly. Producers mean so many different things, whether it's in-house, at an agency, client direct. You have to be adaptive. And I think it's reading a situation, trying to find out what they're asking for, and facilitating that forward. And sometimes it's amazing creative. Sometimes it's huge library shoots, which are grueling.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of content to get in how many days, and it's, shot lists that all of a sudden clients end up on sets and go, oh my God, but we need 10 of these. And you've got a photographer scrambling to set up another set and, trying to figure out how do we get that done, or adding extra days and trying to eke out more budget. But it isn't about crafting one shot. It's how much can I get in a day
It's
now?
absolutely that.
And, but we also want to add motion onto it at the end of the day. And it's who's got the sharper elbows, the motion producer or the stills producer. And I don't even call art, I don't even call photography anymore, because people go, or print, because they go, oh, it's not print. So it's stills and motion. Because we all speak a different language now. Even in an organization, everybody has a different definition for the same word.
Well, and you and I were talking earlier about how not only are they, we all speaking a different language, we're all learning new parts of our jobs, and we're working with people we've never worked with before, right? Broadcast producers are starting to come into the stills world. Stills producers are starting to produce motion. And everybody's trying to kind of learn where they fit. And the personalities are different, and the approaches to like how they organize a job are different, and the expectations are different, and the words they use are different. And I've been doing this a long time, and I feel like I'm learning more now than I did 10 or 15 years ago in my current job. And it's not always easy, for sure. And
no, it's not.
Not at all. And I do see the photographers and directors, or, stills and motion artists, the ones that are the busiest or tend to be the resource for an agency or a partner choice, are the ones that can do all of that really well and speak that language, speak to a broadcast producer just like they would a stills producer or an integrated producer or a client, or they know the language, and they can do the dance on the set, and they can help choreograph exactly what needs to be happened so that you can get all of that content. It's not as easy as just saying, yeah, sure, we'll roll the video camera now. It's very different.
Yes, it is. You have to be adaptable. You have to be a thinker. You have to know how to ask the right questions. And you have to know, because sometimes people don't even understand the question. And, it's that's an art into itself, to get the information that you need. Because you can't make assumptions.
And you were just telling me this story earlier, too, about you worked with an art director who was a digital art director, I think you said, and had never done a photo shoot.
Correct. She had
She
had been working in an agency and had been building websites and working with digital assets, but had never created content. And which even that, saying creating content, is completely sort of a new language. But she'd never done a photo shoot before. And the first shoot, I remember, we went to San Francisco. We were shooting cinemagraphs for Canon. And we went because, of course, it was for the weather, and it was getting late into the fall, and the weather still was good there, and they had the locations we needed. But we thought that we could get like 10 cinemagraphs shot in like 3 days. And it turned out that the photographer, God bless her, ended up shooting on her own time. But, everybody was, if you were billing all your hours, everybody was working at a loss. The work got done, but and we had 100 to shoot in total for this campaign.
Wow. And you only had 3 days to shoot them?
Well, this we did 10 in 3 days.
Oh, okay.
I think we had 2 days, actually. anyway, we thought we could shoot 5 a day, but they ended up being more involved than we thought they were going to be, because they had to be technically perfect for our client, because it was all about the lenses. So there couldn't be any blur, there couldn't be any depth of field, because then it would look like there was something wrong with the lens. So everything had, they were technically harder to capture than, it was supposed to be run and gun, and it wasn't possible.
Right.
So came back to New York and sat down and went, gee, guys, this was really, if we keep doing this, this is a 10-day shoot, and we're going to run out of money before we hit 20. Because I had a budget that was set, and we had to shoot 100. So we had to go back, look at the budget, and say, and rethink the creative going forward. So what could we do? How many could we really do in a day, and how they had to be restricted within the content of them to be able to capture them in that 8-hour or 10-hour day. That's the other thing, is that there's no such thing as an 8-hour day. Right. 10-hour days are normal days without overtime. But so, it's, I think that, something else we talk about, everybody's working more for less.
Yes.
In that regard, it's like we have to put more in to get a product done, to get a project done, more shots in a day, more hours in a day, less compensation, because it's, content that's here today.
Well, and it's valued. Yep. That here today, gone tomorrow, that value is less. I mean, I've always, whenever I talk in front of groups or, refer to this in anything that I write, I talk about that idea of when, as consumers, we experienced iTunes, right? All of a sudden you can get a song for 99 cents. You were like, whoa, oh my gosh. Like it devalued. It made it like, oh, I'm going to buy that one. I'm going to buy that one. I'm going to buy that one.
But at the end of the day, 12 songs was still $12.
12 songs was still $12. But it was just that, like, that I felt like it was this moment in time that switched a little bit. Like it was very easy to get what you wanted. It was only 99 cents, and it kind of made you want more and more. And I think then enter this library of images, the economy crashing, nobody having any money. So everybody trying to figure out how they could be resourceful, provide more value by, I'll give you lots of content because you need it. I'll give it to you. And then enter the, world of the low budgets. And now this is our norm. Now, granted, there are great clients out there. There are people who have healthy budgets and they understand the process. There are 100%. I do not want to, pretend like there are not. But it's still, we're jamming as much as we possibly can into a day. And if you have a photographer or motion artist running the show, they have to know what they're doing, because you can't keep adding all of these on and expect the high quality of work, including all the assets that you need to deliver, and be able to come in on budget and have a happy client and a happy agency and be creative on top of all of that.
No, you can't. I mean, you can, but something's going to give.
Right.
It's the old fast, cheap, or good.
Yeah.
Pick two. But 9 times out of 10, that's not even a realistic option.
Right.
It's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
We want it all. I mean, I think there's also a distinction of, when you talk value, you can talk qualitatively as well about what are images and what is a great image. And it's so subjective now, and what is taste and what is, and do people know the difference? I think that's, I think a lot of people still want to do great work. I'm guilty as charged. It's like I'll fall on my sword to, do something beautiful. And I almost can't do bad work, but there gets to a point where you're just, some days it's Sisyphean to try and do something good. And I think that's also frustrating. I think that's a challenge for people at agencies when they have to get the work out the door. And you still have producers that understand the difference. You still have clients that understand the difference. You just have to have the rest of the team in place, the client that understands, not the client, I mean the account people that works with the client that will work to sell a good creative product, or is it just give the client what they want at the end of the day? So there's a lot of variables, and it's not across the board, but I think when you talk to people in the industry, at least my colleagues, a lot of people are just feeling kind of the burnout from, I just got to get things sold and get it finished. Mm-hmm. And, I think if you have worked on really great campaigns, it's just, we can't mourn it, but it's sad to see the shift because, there was joy in it. There was fun. We talked about where was the fun. And we still have fun.
We still have fun. It's different.
Have fun. It's just, I think clients also have a lot of pressure to deliver, to make sure that they've got their higher ups at the brand. There's so many, potential, pitfalls for everybody. Yeah. There's a lot selling in a campaign. How well is it executed? How well is it going to do? Is my boss going to like it? Yeah. Is my boss going to be here next week?
Right. The turnover and the agency client churn is
and the Droga Accenture merger, to name one. One other agency just lost that a huge piece of business, and it impacted them. So those people are gone, and a lot of people in that as well, I know, have left the agency that it got acquired. So they're now out at the next agency. So it used to be you'd have a through line in. Somebody would be an expert on the business now, or really understand the client. And I'm not sure, I think it's still important, but I think to clients and to agencies, but I think also the fact that things do change, it's people have to get up to speed a lot quicker, and the focus is less.
The focus is less, I think, too. And I think clients are some clients or brands are okay with, hiring a production company or, bringing it in-house themselves, or not looking for that deep, long-term relationship, big picture thinking that only a creative agency could have provided, because what they want is like fast, quick, nimble, crossed off my list, get it done, let's get it out the door. In some instances.
Yes. No, I don't disagree with you, because I've seen it. And again, I've had production companies that shoot motion call me for help because they need a photographer and they can't manage it.
Right.
So, which is music to my ears, but you realize that they are concepting.
Yeah.
They're the ones coming up with the creative concept. They're coming up with,
who's the they in your example?
These independent production companies.
Yes,
there are content creator production companies who say, come to us. Yep. You can shoot it all. We'll help you with your creative. I've seen it, and I've had, agents who were typical, traditional agents come in, and now they have to move towards that model to get the work and they realize there's a vacuum, there's a void, because there's a lot of clients that don't have the production resources. So they're stepping in saying, hey, we'll help you with that.
Exactly what's happening. And we get lots of phone calls like that, for sure.
And that's why you need a producer on staff. But yes, and it's, it's different because it changes the relationship of a photographer to a client, because then they have to be project management and creative, which the photographers came in to collaborate, but they're not necessarily complete conceptualists or idea or strategists.
Right.
And sometimes it's like, here, go take this and go out and do something with it, which is great in theory, but in reality, everybody wants everything mediated.
Right.
So there is hey, this is what we want to do, but we need to see the board first. We need to see a treatment before we'll hire you.
Right.
So it's shifting where the work goes. And I think for producers, art producers, content producers, these job descriptions and job duties end up becoming like the kitchen sink, where producers now are expected to be, producers editors or producers retouchers, or, which was it's a very different head and a very different skill set. But, I think, and obviously with technology and younger people coming out of art schools, they have that skill set and they do it all. But it's still a different way of looking at an image and or thinking about an idea. And it's also, you don't get the beauty of working with a team or finding the right collaborator, photographer, illustrator, artist, is you bring something special to the project that has this ability to have something really fresh and new versus, if you've got somebody working in that regard. And I know in-house, clients in-house, that's what they, a lot of places expect their producers to do. But it in my estimation, you end up having the same kind of approach to something because somebody has a style, somebody has a point of view, which is what photographers do. You see the world a certain way. We bring this to you're a car photographer. I'm a landscape photographer. How do I do beauty? You bring the expert within that specialty in versus somebody who is a writer, producer, shooter, editor. It's, I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. It's just that I think, to me, it's a lot of hats to wear.
It is a lot of hats to wear. And it's hard to define what you do, right? Because you have to be a lot of different things to a lot of people. And you definitely want to be specialized. You want to have a point of view on what you do. But like we were talking about beforehand, it's not enough to say you're a freelance producer, right? Yeah. Really trying to define what it is that you do and what you can offer makes a huge difference, I think.
And I think, the other issue and, or the other shift in the industry, I think, is with producer, it isn't, I do negotiation, I do casting, I can do location scouting, I have, I'm attention to detail. Those are competencies, but everything is also what value brought to the client now. Again, data, results. Oh, I did this, which, we won an award because of it. We, my client increased sales by X. Our jobs are also being defined by results and not just by a certain kind of skill set. Mm-hmm. And it's a different approach to what we have been traditionally taught to do, and it's that's an adjustment as well. Because when you go out in the world and talk to people, it's like you have to gauge what are they really looking for, and what is it that they are trying to achieve, and you have to kind of.
Well, we're doing the same thing in our group of photographers. Mm-hmm. We partner with a client, and it used to be that I would be really proud to cheerlead for those cool images mm-hmm. or that motion work that we created. Look what we did. Right. But now I'm talking about the results. Not that our work is going to be able to take the credit for that, but we were part of a team that created something that generated results. So if I'm creating content around a campaign or a project that one of my photographers did, I'm going to reach out to the client and I'm going to talk to them and I'm going to go the extra little mile to get that information. Because if you want to hire my photographer to do a stills and a motion shoot, wouldn't you want to hear from other people about how well that campaign did, a previous campaign did, and what it was like working with that person?
Oh, yes, because many times I see on the various forums, on Facebook and LinkedIn that, have you worked with so-and-so? How was it to work with them?
Yeah.
Did you do this? And because it used to be we'd all have these experiences, we'd work with somebody. Now we're all a little bit removed from that immediacy mm-hmm. of the process. I think one thing that production has become, and we talked about this earlier, it's moving more and more to project management mm-hmm. and less hands-on production. And at least a lot of the younger producers that I see at agencies, it's get the job done management. They have to manage a budget. They have to manage an SOW. They have to hit, they have to know all the channels, and they route it all. They do it from, I call it snout to tail production.
Yeah.
But they're, they're sitting with creatives and they run, and a lot, and 9 times out of 10, they know of 3 agents, and they'll call and say, "Who do you have for this?"
Mm-hmm.
And
no, we get that a lot, and I feel so fortunate to be in that position.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are a lot of people who get those kind of phone calls,
yes.
but it's relationships too. The time that I've put in, the time that my photographers
Mm-hmm.
have put in, and how we've delivered for people
Right.
makes a huge difference because they have so much riding on it. They're not going to
No.
maybe choose someone new at this point.
Well, there's that. I don't know if anybody can take risks as much or are willing to take risks. But I think it also is. It is, safety, it's comfort, it's relationships, and it's also people are overworked. They just, it's like, who do I know? And let me call. And, because there would, again, when I was working with a team in house, I'd have, younger producers come to me, content or integrated producers come to me and say, I need this kind of photographer. And I'd say, I've got a meeting, let me come back in a half hour. And they want to talk, I'd say, you want to sit down and talk about what you want? And they said, I just reached out to 5 people. And they'd pick up the phone and call reps. And I'd be like, okay, because I wasn't available when they needed me.
Right.
It was, I missed the opportunity to collaborate.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's a strange way to say it, but it was, oh my God, it's the immediacy.
It's immediate.
And it's also being fast, because a lot of times, and I'm sure I don't know how your calls are, but you were talking about this sort of rapid fire,
Mm-hmm.
Conversations you have with some producers. But it's also trying to understand what they're looking for, but they don't have time to answer the questions either.
It's so true. We often, we'll get a request, send me some links, or can you put together a PDF, or, and I can do all of that, no problem. But sometimes I just might need to pick up the phone and just say, can we go to my website for a minute, or his or her website, and just show me, like, which ones did you like? Is it this vein or that vein? Because I'm going to put in probably a half hour to an hour's worth of work to get you what you need. And if I've missed the mark because we didn't communicate clearly, it's going to make more work for you, or I'm going to completely miss out on an opportunity for one of my photographers. So the people that are willing to pick up the phone or reply to an email or just give me a little bit more information in the beginning, like, hey, this is what I like about Joe Smith. I grabbed these images off of his website. Can you pull more of these type of images for me? Super helpful. I've got photographers that will do image pulls before they do treatments and say, please tell me what you like from these. Am I on the right track? And at that point, they are engaging with us because there's an actual project that we are creating a treatment for. But it's in those pre-bid, like before I'm being asked to bid something, when I'm asking to send something along. They're moving way fast and they don't have the time sometimes.
No, they don't. Everybody is overworked, stretched thin.
Mm-hmm.
Things move so quickly. I remember old-fashioned timelines, but, shoots you'd produce, from okay, here's the brief, creative, rounds, whatever.
Yep.
And then, photography, you do a shoot, 2 weeks, retouching another 2 weeks. That was like a 16-week timeline. I think people would laugh at me if I had a 16-week timeline.
Oh my gosh. It's not unusual for us sometimes to like produce a shoot in a week or two.
Mm-hmm.
And then the agencies are helping in those situations. The athlete is being provided. We've got a location already. Like, I'm not saying we can like fully cast, find real patients, like new locations and all of that in that amount of time. But it's definitely gotten harder.
Yeah. And also, you talk about talent. And talent management has gotten more involved. Model management has gotten more involved. Payroll's gotten more involved.
Oh my gosh.
Crew has gotten more involved.
Totally.
Business affairs, most art producers, I think, business and broadcast, they always had separate business affairs. Art producers were expected to do everything, do all their own paperwork. And I think that's starting to shift because, it has gotten so complicated. We were talking about NDAs, we were talking about terms and conditions, we were talking about understanding rights management, what do clients really need? Social media, they want to own everything. Do they really need it? They don't have the budget. Do I just shoot it and give it away for nothing? Those are the questions you ask. Internally, you're lucky if anybody can even understand those.
Oh, completely. I was laughing with a client the other day because there was so much back and forth on these terms. I was like, I feel like I need to be a lawyer. I'm like, I have to go back to law school. Like, I'm so sorry that I have all these questions for you. She's like, oh my gosh, are you kidding? She's like, more questions. She was very gracious, but it wasn't questions like I didn't understand something. It was like, no, if I indemnify you, you need to indemnify me. Or, you need to refer to the PO and like all of these things that were like things that never came up before. No. And so much more of our time is being spent reviewing.
And broadcast, because it is a collaborative art, film, and especially if you film motion, you're doing a film shoot, motion, whatever you want to call it, and a still shoot photography. They're two different animals when it comes to rights usage and copyright. Film is always a work for hire, but you got to be careful about giving away all the captures.
Well, absolutely. And on top of it, it's not broadcast. No. We're not giving away broadcast.
No, you shouldn't give away broadcast, but if you do give away all the capture under work for hire, they can use it. They will reuse it. I've seen it.
They'll use the stills.
No, they will use the film.
Oh, they'll use the film.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Yes, you have to be careful because some clients require the masters, and that means it's all a work for hire. So I've learned that over the years as well. But a lot of times we just say internet, electronic media usage only.
And our motion usage restricts broadcast also because the approach to a broadcast shoot is way different than a video shoot. It
is, but video shoots do still have AICP contracts, so that's what you have to watch out for. And I don't know. I mean, that's when I work with, business affairs, my business affairs people, whoever I work with, because that is not, I understand it. It's not, that's a career into and of itself. But for producers without the experience or agents without the experience, you have to be careful. And a lot of producers that you may be working with say, what do you mean? Of course we get it all.
That happens a lot, especially when a broadcast producer is being brought into a print shoot to work on the motion side of it. And I'm saying you do not have, and the estimates that are print approved and everything. And I say, like, you don't have broadcast usage for this. It hasn't been negotiated. And they say, well, yes, everything has it. And no, the fees were not set with that in mind because that wasn't the original scope of the job. And here we are at this
you're on
moment,
set.
Right? And you have to be like, okay, we have to figure this out right now. And it's even especially with talent too, it becomes a big issue.
Oh, it is a big issue, and also, SAG, not SAG. I won't go into all that because that's a whole nother area of expertise, and and also what. Agencies having production companies to, for talent purposes and whatnot. But it's very complicated. And that's a big difference since when I started. I mean, Ogilvy had a talent department. They may still, I don't know, it's been so many years, but, I'm sure it's turned more into business affairs. But they used to manage all of that. And it was, people were, SAG was SAG, and you had the cycles, but now, and SAG has gotten in, to talk about all, the minute you talk about motion and you start dealing, then there's different kind of buyouts for motion. And if there's SAG, then it really becomes tricky with all the different talent usages and payments and the payroll. And that alone can kill your budget.
Oh my gosh. And you know what a lot of people are starting to do? Shoot over in Europe or in South America.
But you know what? I don't quote me on that, but they do that, but you have to be careful because there are some jurisdictions. There are. But it depends also where they air them, where the material is viewed.
That's true as well. But the amount of money that's being saved when those decisions are, able to be made correctly is enormous.
Yes, absolutely. So it's a bit of a tutorial of the mindset, but it just says how much, again, how much our jobs are now so business, so technical, so legal, so financial, so labor,
Oh my gosh. Well, you and I were talking earlier and you mentioned it, this idea of fun.
Yeah.
And I was having dinner a couple of weeks ago with someone she was probably 26 or 27. She was interested in what my job was. And I talked a lot about how it had changed over the years. And she was like, well, what was it like when you first started? I'm like, it was me and my little flip phone, and I would go to photo shoots and I would, chat up the clients at lunch, go show a portfolio or two and come home and bang out an estimate and fax it to somebody.
Yes.
I said, and that was my day, and it was mostly fun.
Yeah.
And then, I'd go on a trip here or there to show the books and meet new people. Now it's everything we talked about today, the knowledge that's required of any of us, not just my role, but the understanding of also knowing what you don't know.
Exactly.
And being able to go get the help. And I think that comes also down to the relationships that exist in this business. So I can pick up the phone and say, oh my God, Jean, can you help me? I have no idea what I'm reading here. Or, you can say, Heather, I need this photographer or this director to do something. Can you help me here? And I think that, that makes a huge difference. So I'm happy I started where I did, as I'm sure you are. Those experiences you talked about at the beginning.
Yep, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And, again, like you said, it can be melancholy about the shift and the change. We adapt. It's different. You have to accept it. And I think we're
valuable.
And yes, I agree. And you find the people that appreciate. That's what you do. You find the clients that you want to work with. You find your collaborators you want to work with. Clients find me that they want to work with. And it's great because they see the value that I can bring to a project, I call it added value. Mm-hmm. And, and then there's days you're just basically, okay, it's a project. I'm just going to get it done.
Yeah.
But I think that's for everybody.
Yeah.
There's the fun creative projects, and then there's the journeyman work.
Yep. Well, we should wrap up a little bit here, but one question I always like to ask people, because sometimes it catches them off guard, and that's an interesting answer, is if you weren't doing this, what would you do?
Oh, that's very easy.
Oh, okay, good.
Oh,
not catching your.
Oh no, I'd be in my studio painting.
Oh, yeah. I probably would have guessed that because you said you were a painter earlier.
No question, hands down. And living on an island in the Mediterranean.
Oh, that sounds real, especially today. That sounds so nice.
Exactly. No, it's that's not a hard question.
Okay, well, that's good. Me, I had dinner a few weeks ago, or actually it was now over the summer, I guess, with an art producer friend who he was one of the very first person I ever asked that question to. And I love his answer. It was always my favorite. And he said he would be a bus driver.
That's amazing.
He's like, I'd meet all these great people and I'd have a beginning and an end to my day and I'd follow a route.
There's something really, I kind of like that.
Right?
Knowing where you're starting, knowing where you're
ending.
And knowing that the day ends.
Yep.
Because our days, don't end. Gig economy, New York especially, it's 24/7. You go to Europe, it's less so, but and London less so. But New York is nonstop.
Yeah.
And there's a beauty to that, but there's also, there's life outside of it. And that was also the beauty of what we did, is we had the opportunities to travel, to meet interesting people, to, meet other artists, to have, and I mean, I've worked with amazing creatives over the year, art directors, other producers. I've had, I love my legal teams over the years, so it's about working,
all your people.
It's about working with great people, and you find that anywhere. But life is what you make it.
It is. Well, that's a great way to leave it. Thank you for all of your insights. I love that we did not go through any of our questions. We literally just had a conversation about what's going on in the industry. I think, we needed this. I think at the point we are in the podcast, I think I hear a lot of feedback from people just about how much things are changing all the time and the questions that they have. And I think you answered probably a lot of questions
I
from
hope
people
so.
or provided some insights. I don't know if there's any answers, but
there are no definitive answers. It's just you have to accept change.
Yeah.
You have to embrace change.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the one thing the constant in life is change. I actually finished a Snowden biography, and I think he said something to that effect, like about his life. And it's like, I love change.
Yep. Well, on that, enjoy your evening.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming.
Thanks for listening. In an industry where the rules are always changing, it's helpful to hear from those on the front line. Heather Elder is the visionary behind notesfromarepsjournal.com. Visit her website for industry updates, studying photography and video, and the artist behind the work.